Hi, everybody. Happy Friday. Hope you can hear me all right. Um, Today, we are going to talk a little bit about. Let me know, by the way, in the chat if you can hear me all right. I had to adjust my sound settings and I want to make sure they are working. So, if you're out there, that would be awesome. So, today, I want to talk to you about something that has been bugging me for a long time. And I'm going to cover it here in a members only capacity because I feel like if I go straight out to the public with this idea, it's going to be misunderstood. I feel like my audience is a little sharper than the average in terms of hearing things as I say them and as I mean them and not, putting a spin on it. So take that as a compliment. I don't know if I will discuss this publicly much until I can, fully form my thoughts, but here it is. For a long time now, for me, it's going on 3 years. I don't know about y'all. I've referred to myself as anti-woke. And it's worked as a shorthand to describe being opposed to statism in general, against collectivism, against the bad ideas that are permeating Western society right now because they seem to be anti-individual, anti-liberty, anti-American, anti-family, anti-religion, anti all the things that have made Western civilization so successful and prosperous and have actually reduced poverty over the years and made for better lives for more people. Sorry, these are like not staying on today. Um and so woke, saying you're anti-woke, being anti all of those collectivist ideas is a helpful shorthand. Um, I'm concerned it's outlived its usefulness because we have arrived at the point where people on both sides, people who are against those of us who are fighting this garbage, have used it to refer to anyone and everyone who opposes them, no matter how equally crazy their ideas are. Because not everybody that opposes these woke ideas is sane. Just because you oppose these bad ideas doesn't mean you don't have a bunch of other really bad ones of your own. So they're kind of lumping us in. Those of us who actually try to think about these things and ask intelligent questions are lumping us in with some people that are, I don't agree with them. That doesn't describe me. So now that the left and the statists have co-opted anti-woke the same way they co-opted MAGA to refer to, even the people who cultishly, slavishly worship Trump, not just people who are like, well, I'll hold my nose and vote for him. And that's a pretty broad category. Um, it's, I'm starting to think, "Ew." But there's a bigger problem even than that. And that is that I think well-meaning people you may know, maybe even you from time to time accidentally, are getting distracted by some of the issues, especially with regard to education, that I believe were created and are now being maintained in spite of backlash. In other words, in spite of anti-woke backlash, in spite of, you know, all kinds of efforts, political and activists, to push back against these issues, and I'll list them in a moment. Um, they seem to be doubling down. And so when I saw that happening, I said, wait a minute, let me take a step back and see if these might be distractions. And it turns out they are. Let me give you a list. So for a long time, it was there's no CRT in the schools. There's no CRT in education. What are you talking about? What? You're crazy. No, you don't even know what CRT is. Da, 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 da. Then it became, well, that's not really CRT, or well, you're not doing CRT properly, or then well, there should be more CRT. But we spent a lot of time, we spent a lot of money, we spent a lot of energy, first of all, educating people about what the heck CRT was and why it was bad. Therefore, why it shouldn't be in our K-12 schools. And then we spent a bunch of time spinning our wheels, convincing people it was there. While everybody, no, not, no, it's not. No, that took a year and bled into the presidential campaign. And then once they started saying there should be more of it, people persisted in continuing to fight. No, you're wrong. Yes, we're right. No, you're wrong. Yes, we're right. And it took a really long time for people to see what was really going on, which was the whole thing was a distraction for much bigger things going on in education to do with money, data mining, SEL, mental health, community schools, so forth. But, CRT, yeah, CRT is bad. But we got so fired up about, certain lessons and certain things and fixated on the term CRT that we forgot about the philosophy behind it. Moving on. Then you had the porn in the books, the pornographic books in the library. And I agree, they shouldn't be there. They absolutely shouldn't be there. And many people, myself included, as of a year ago, but mostly James Lindsay, were trying to educate parents about why they're there. So the parents could take a step back and say, "Oh, I get it now. They're tweaking us. They're purposely doing this. They're putting the books there." But no. There's porn, there's porn. It seemed like a really easy way to raise awareness and make more people be anti-woke. But did it really? Did it really philosophically change hearts and minds to be opposed to state solutions for education? Or did it just animate a lot of people to go scream at school boards and make the news and suddenly be compared to Nazis burning books? Not to mention the attention it drew to the book, selling loads of copies to people who never would have known of their existence, largely on the left, but also it gave NGOs and people who wanted to up their scores of being inclusive all kinds of incentive to donate thousands of copies of these books in response to the anti-woke movement. And it gave entities like the Brooklyn Public Library an incentive to develop an online resource for people nationwide to access these books for free from their phones, where parents couldn't as easily control what the kids were seeing. And teachers, even in districts and states that were rushing in to ban these things, could get around through a VPN. No one would ever know. Hey, kiddos. Hey, kiddos. They love to call them kiddos. Go to the Brooklyn Public Library. You can take out whatever book you want, but you didn't hear it from me. What I say in the classroom, secret. And if one student decides to go tattle, who are they tattling to? The school that agrees with the teacher and is only reluctantly pretending to follow the law? Remember that they let the teachers do it in the first place. Their parents who now have to go say, my child said. Teachers, I never said that. He said, she said. Lying is okay in the name of the revolution. Just ask the Palestinian supporters, the protesters. Lying is fine in support of communism. That's a Saul Alinsky thing, goes way back. So we had the CRT, we had the porn. And now with DEI, which again, so bad. DEI is terrible. Who would disagree? DEI is really at the crux of all of it. This push for something called diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is just attaching identity markers to what used to be class designations for Marxism and communism. Much easier to divide people into lots of little groups, especially in a society that tolerates some income, inequality like the United States, where we see that actually is not necessarily a bad thing because I can always rise up, right? There's always that possibility. And we've just been very tolerant of degrees of income inequality in this country, more so than other countries, largely because we don't have a history of a huge peasant class that is arbitrarily kept down by high taxes and tithing and like the serfs were and the French were before the revolution. We didn't have that. So people go, your income is unequal to the person like right up above you or whatever. And you're like, yeah, okay. But I can be them, So it was not something, not to mention the fact that our poor people in this country were richer than poor people have ever been. So wasn't really taking hold. So how are we going to get these people animated? How are we going to get well, we're going to go to those who are poor and do have economic inequalities, and we're going to give them a new reason for their plight that they can blame on other people who, you know, are just their next door neighbor. How do we divide these people and break them apart and break the spirit of America? Well, easy peasy. Race, sex, all the things, religion, you name it. So DEI is really at the, is the base of all that. It's the foundation of it. So yes, absolutely. For people who say they're anti-woke, to go after DEI is logical. Like, of course, DEI is bad as a policy. But what is it really? Just strip out the names and the weird language and all that. What is DEI? Well, DEI is institutionalized violation of the Civil Rights Act. That's what it is. You've just institutionalized a violation of constitutional protections at its core. And everything else falls after that. It's if you do that and you're able to get away with it, then it's a hop, skip, and a jump to teach a bunch of children who are already your captive audience that the world is divided into power and privilege and all this other garbage. Because if they say, I don't agree, or the parents come in and say, I don't agree, they'll just violate the law and shut them up. No free speech for you. No due process for you. No, we're already violating the Civil Rights Act. Nobody notices because nobody knows what it is anymore. Nobody seems to want to defend it. So we can just do anything else we want to attach to that. Boys in the girls' bathroom, no problem. Sex discrimination is okay with us. It really at its core is a violation of civil rights. That's it. With lots and lots and lots of little sub violations that are never getting punished. But what happens when you become anti-woke is instead of focusing on that and saying, hey, guys, all of this would go away if we enforce the law. If we disincentivize violating the law, no matter how many fancy words they put on it, how many times they change the branding, by punishing the lawbreakers, as we said we would when the Civil Rights Act was passed. And then you have equal opportunity laws, and you have all the things that flowed from the Civil Rights Act of 1964, public and private. And now, instead of doing that, we have people calling themselves anti-woke who are demanding to be included on the intersectionality chart. It's not fair. Jews, as an example. My people, my tribe, right? Oh, it's not fair. It doesn't include me. I want to be in there. You're supposed to protect me also. Put me in the ethnic studies. What? No, thank you. No. It's not okay to violate civil rights as long as you're included in the list of special people. You also have sometimes Christians saying the same thing. Well, if you get to teach your religion in school, I should be able to teach my religion. I should have the Christian books in the school. It's like, okay, it's a sort of cute intellectual exercise to say, if it's all right to have porn, why can't we have the Bible? I grant you, to call out hypocrisy, but that's not really the point, is it? The point is we had decency laws. We have laws against, corrupting minors. We have consent laws. We have laws that were supposed to protect children from indecent things, pornography, contributing to their delinquency, having adults do that, solicitation, all of these things. There are laws. Enforce the freaking laws that are. No, for some reason we can't do that. Instead, it's me too, me too, me too, me too, me too, from people calling themselves anti-woke. And I'm thinking, wait, you don't get to call yourself anti-woke and then demand your tribe get equal special treatment, even if you think that's going to help. And I've made my share of jokes saying, when they pass rules in school districts that you can change your name every day if you're a kid, that you should go in and be subversive and have your kids change their name every day and just overload the system. And I'm half serious, because if you're gonna do something that's stupid, then everybody should do it just to prove how stupid it is. But that's not really how you're going to get rid of it. Just enforce the law against compelled speech, which is we have to recognize and say whatever the heck it is you want. Legal documents aside, your parents aside, your birth certificate aside, we'll just like call you whatever you want. Can you think you'd get away with that when you go to the passport office? You have to call me by this other name. I know I have no documents to prove that that's what it is, but you have to do it or you're hateful. No, it doesn't work like that. So enforce the law. But that's not anti-woke to suddenly say me too, us too, this isn't fair. We should be included. And what's also not really against woke philosophy and ideas of totalitarian top-down state solutions for everything is demanding bans. Ban DEI, ban CRT, ban this, ban the books, ban that. You don't need to ban them. Even from a school library. First of all, you really can't, as I just said, because of the Brooklyn Public Library's little e-book thing. Good luck. They'll come in electronically. You simply enforce decency laws and consent laws. We used to have codes of ethics for school teachers, professional codes of ethics. Bring those back. Establish some rules around how you behave when you're in charge of children, because they can't consent to any of this. So they attach to consent laws, codes of conduct and ethics. No, you don't get to lie to parents. It's a violation of your code of ethics. You violated, you're punished, you're fired, or you're suspended, or whatever. That's how you deal with it. You create disincentives for individuals to bring their shitty ideas into the classroom or the boardroom, where they can, attempt to force other people to abide by them by enforcing the law, the existing law. And the title of this stream is Don't Fall for the Anti-Woke Distraction Trap, because I genuinely believe that every one of these little sub-issues is a distraction to get us to do exactly what we're doing, us being people who don't like these ideas. Congressman so-and-so sponsor a bill to ban this. Everyone, let's get our moms group together and go to the school board meeting and scream and yell in the microphone. We need to ban these books. We need to stop putting these books in the library. Okay, we'll stop putting them in the library. Now they're online. Yay. And that's assuming the school board has the kind of power to go into the classroom in a judiciary capacity and say, you may not do that. They don't. They don't even have that power. But people are spending money and time and energy showing up at school board meetings. I want to speak. I want to read this disgusting passage from this pornographic book aloud on camera, where my child can hear it, where the whole county can hear it, where it's going to live on the internet for all time. My kids' teachers are going to hear it. Their peers are going to hear it. I'm sure that won't back up on my children at all. No, I'm sure my boss will be totally fine with this as well if he or she ever sees it. I mean, what they're getting people to do, like little puppets on strings, is have a hissy fit comparable to the hissy fits the woke are having. And it becomes this competition. Me, look at me. No, listen to me. Listen to me. Hey, Mr. Politician, do what I want. Do what I want. Do what I want. It shouldn't be up to any of them. Shouldn't be up to any of them. I'll vote for the person who steps up and says, is this thing on? Yes, we have a Civil Rights Act and we have constitutional protections for freedom of speech, religion, and assembly. As a consequence, if you're a public institution receiving public funds and we get reports that you have been engaging in compelled speech or discrimination of any kind on the basis of race, sex, religion, etc., there will be a full investigation into your conduct. And if you are found to be guilty, you will lose all your funding, you will lose your job, you will lose pretty much everything you care about. And by the way, you will forever be known as a violator of civil rights. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. This is straightforward, and it's not political. It's just the law. But by breaking it into these little bitty attempts at violation of the law that sound so virtuous in both respects. It sounds very virtuous to say we're going to ban porn in the library. We're going to ban it. Okay, but you legally can't ban it from the public library. That you can't do. At most, you can ask the librarian to sequester it in a place where adults are, not put it in the literal kids section. But as it is the public library, no. No matter how much you hate porn, you can't ban it from being there. That's just reality. I'd rather see you work on banning public libraries because they're inherently political. But if they're going to be there, they need to put what they want. Public K-12 libraries have a slightly different purpose in that they are serving children, again, who cannot consent, who cannot just go buy porn. But you're still going to have a hard time banning it from there because you have to get everyone to agree that it is porn. But if you can get something designated as porn, then you just enforce the existing law. And any distraction from that effort is going to feed the beast. Even if the actual woke don't spend a lot of their time, delegitimizing your arguments by saying you're a Nazi and you're a book burner and you hate trans children or whatever it is, even if that didn't happen, you are literally behaving as they are. My group doesn't like it, therefore, because there are parents who do like it. Insane as that sounds, they do, and they pay taxes. And I disagree with them forever and always. I think they're absolutely wrong. I think they're child abusers. I think people who go to the store and buy their kids genderqueer and say, "Here, honey, read it." No, that's crazy. But I don't want the government going into their house and saying, "You can't give that book to your kid." Now, you might be wondering, well, Deb, what about the puberty blockers and things like that? I said kids can't consent, didn't I? We have laws on the books already. Kids can't consent to get a tooth drilled. They can't consent to ear piercing. They can't consent to sex legally. Not to say they don't do it, but if somebody gets caught on either side and they're not super close in age, there's going to be a rape allegation. They can't buy cigarettes. They can't buy alcohol. They can't drive a car. There are many things they can't do, and we enforce those laws pretty strict, pretty stringently. So it's the same thing. Just like you would be punished as a parent if you gave your kid booze at the age of 8, then guess what? You find a doctor who's willing to write you off label or off their license. They're willing to risk their life. They do have to have a medical license. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry doesn't get to just go practice medicine and prescribe medications. So it's actually pretty easy to include in the licensure laws that exist. No, you may not. So banning the distribution of puberty blockers by doctors, that's legit. As is banning parents finding a doctor somewhere in Canada to get them from and feeding them to their children. That can be done. That's not a distraction. Focus on that. Focus on those laws but it's consent laws that you're enforcing. Any new law or new clause to a law is based on consent as the precedent. Stick to that like glue. Not, ban transition therapies. No. Enforce consent laws. It's about how you frame things and framing it the way the woke wants you to frame it. They want to ban things. And you're going, yes, we do. Okay. Welcome to the distraction. Welcome to distraction theater. You're now a banner of things that people want, meanie, as opposed to, I don't want to ban anything. I want to enforce the law. I want to enforce consent laws that exist for a reason. Remember why we set them up? To protect children. We just want to enforce them. They're not being enforced. Children cannot consent. You haven't changed the law. You haven't persuaded through debate, discussion or anything in the legislature, you have not persuaded the electorate that children can consent to permanently altering their biology. You've not done that job. So we're not banning anything. The onus is on you to persuade all of us in this democracy you're so fond of that we should make an exception here and allow children to make permanent decisions while suffering dysphoria about their fertility, their bone strength, their IQ, their budget in the future for anything, because they're going to have to be permanently on these medications. So, if you think that's okay, please make a case for it. That's how we need to talk. And instead, we're using the language of bans and prohibition and so on, which I think immediately, no matter how right you are in terms of what the thing is, that it's bad, it gets delegitimized because it creates opportunities for the very bad people putting these very bad ideas in front of our kids and our fellow citizens as if they're good, but it gives them opportunities to not have to sell their ideas, just to browbeat the shit out of you with them. Big bad meanie, you're so mean. By the way, the same thing happens in your own house with your children. We just have a tendency to recognize it more quickly. But sometimes we get caught, don't we? You have to go to bed now. It's past your bedtime. You need to sleep. But so why you're so mean and you're making me do this and you're making me do that and you get actually dragged into a conversation with a kid about why there's a bedtime and why they have to do it and how they were tired today and if they got enough sleep, et cetera, instead of just being like, I'm sorry, what? Bedtime is now. Go to bed. There it is. It's not my job to persuade you that bedtime should exist. It's your job to go to bed on time when I've made that decision. So we as a society made a decision that children cannot consent. Children are children, not adults. Children shouldn't be having sex. They shouldn't be sexualized. They shouldn't be brainwashed. They shouldn't be indoctrinated by the state. We made these decisions long, long ago. The existence of government schooling notwithstanding. I mean, as bad as it is, and it shouldn't exist. I don't recall, even then, even when Dewey and Horace Mann got together and said, let's do the thing, I'm pretty sure the electorate didn't say, oh, yes, please, and make sure you just suck all their individuality out of them and turn them into automatons for the state. Nobody agreed to that. Nobody agreed to that. Never mind that these people should replace parents right down to the last thought in your kid's head. But they're acting like, well, you gave your kids to the school, so therefore we get to do whatever we want. Nope, never said that. Never said that. Never gonna say that. The onus is on you to persuade us why this is good. And then when they get up there and go, people and kids are gonna commit suicide and these bad things are gonna happen. It is up to the rest of the mature world to not go, pervert, groomer, blah. All true, by the way, but not to get distracted by that. Remain the adult in the room. Like you wouldn't have a shouting fit with your kid over bedtime. Brat, you disrespectful little shit, blah, blah, blah. You wouldn't do that because that would make you look like an idiot. You would get sucked down that rabbit hole. You would just be like sitting there. Are you done? All right, now go to bed. Same thing should be happening with our debates. The kids, use my pronouns, do the thing, you're Nazis, you're whatever. Are you quite through? Okay, we're still not allowing you to poison children because consent. Thanks for coming. I mean, and we'd save a lot of time and a lot of money. Toddlers screaming at us about things we don't want to do. No, we're not having an argument or a debate. We're going to go straight to our congressman or a senator and say, we expect you to enforce the law. And if you don't, you will be turned out of office. How do you like them apples? Instead, we're funding campaigns and raising money to, so and so supports a band. He's my guy. I like him the best. Well, I just talked to a mother last week in Florida, the great state where they banned CRT in K-12. It's banned now. Everything's going to be fine, right? Because they banned CRT from the classroom. Like we spent 2 years trying to define CRT objectively. And even though we have critical pedagogy and culture responsive education and all the things, and I've spent I don't know how many hours trying to explain what it is to people so they can at least recognize that and not get sucked into like, it seems okay. I don't think it's that. It's like a legal theory taught in college, isn't it? So I've tried to just like educate people what it is, but that's not their cue to go and say, okay, that thing that Deb told me about, yeah, ban that thing. Yeah, do that. Ban that thing. As soon as you understand it, you should be like, oh, so essentially, they want to teach some ideas that legitimize compelled speech and segregation. Got it. All right. Yeah. So we just need to make sure that they cannot segregate the students in any way, shape, or form. They cannot race base the curriculum. They cannot, let's do it. So some of the CRT bans do say you can't race base. That was already written in law, though. You just had to enforce the existing law. Go through the curriculum and go, yeah, that's discriminatory. That's discriminatory. No, can't do that. That's pushing discrimination. That's pushing segregation. That is a violation of Civil Rights Act, and it's compelled speech to grade them on it. So no, that's where that should have gone. And instead, so they passed a law in Florida, supposedly banning CRT in K-12. Her daughter goes to class, 9th grade, I think, 9th or 10th grade. No, I'm sorry, 11th grade. That's right, because it's an AP class. And she's sitting in AP class, and the teacher says, okay, we're going to read this, and we're going to talk about that. And the kid's like, that's CRT. And she's right. According to what the mom told me, daughter's absolutely right. Mom taught her well that what the teacher was pushing was CRT. And the teacher says, and she said, that's against the law, teacher so-and-so, says the 11th grader, who's been very well prepared by her mother. And the teacher says, no, it's not, because this is an AP class and that's a college level class. So I can teach it here. Little tiny loophole in the law. Well, why do you think they got around that? Because they planned for it. They were ready, as was the College Board. So there you have it. So states like mine in North Carolina, we don't have an explicit ban on CRT, but what we did that was a much better way to do it that didn't get sucked down the distraction rabbit hole of this latest thing that will isolate and they'll just hide it some other way, is they looked over all the AP class, syllabi. They looked over all the stuff looking for these violations of North Carolina state law and civil rights law and found some. In the AP English class, they found some books that broke. What was amazing is the laws they broke, the North Carolina laws, had to do with how they're not supposed to teach material that is not properly sourced. And they have very specific criteria for properly sourced. And they have very specific criteria for balance, believe it or not, fairly objective. Even I didn't know these existed, but the people who went and looked at it, in part, I'm proud to say, because I pushed them to, they were initially going to go in and say, this is a violation of my religion because of God and so forth. I said, don't go there. Don't go there. They'll just laugh you out of court. I said, look to see what laws they're violating. This has to be a violation of some part of the Civil Rights Act or some part of anti-discrimination laws that exist. And they just dug through all the statutes. And yes, they found some amazing statutes that said that this particular, using Stamped from the Beginning in this class, along with another book that was of a similar bent, Ta-Nehisi Coates kind of garbage, was a violation of law in terms of what they can use to teach these courses in North Carolina. So then the woman who was presenting this case went before the county. She went to the court, actually. So it was like the county court that was hearing this sort of lawsuit. And she presented her case and they found in her favor. They said, you're absolutely right. I'm sure they were unhappy to do so, by the way, given the composition of that body. It was Impossible to dispute. There were criteria there of what the learning materials had to have and not have. This did not measure up. The teacher had put it in there for political reasons. It was pretty obvious. And they had to pull those materials from that class. And now, having done so, because the teacher's been disciplined, it's out of the class from now until forever. And the whole school has been put on notice, all the teachers, that they will be held accountable. You try this little angle again, and you're going to get punished. There will be consequences. That creates a disincentive for them to do it again. A ban from the top, you better not do this. It's like saying to your kid, don't stay up. And they're like, I can't go to bed. And then they have like a flashlight under the covers. Unless you're going to go in and take the flashlight. Unless you're going to go in and say, aha, I see what you did there. They're just going to find new ways around it. These are children. They're behaving. I mean, they're not children. They're adults, arrested development adults, but they're behaving like little kids. And if we, the anti-woke, want to actually do any good, we can't also behave like children or give in to their, like pretend we can argue with children, pretend we can have a debate with children. You can't have a debate with children. Find the law they're violating. I promise you there is one, or we wouldn't be so upset. We wouldn't be so upset. This is the United States of America. Why do we instantly recognize, we who call ourselves anti-woke, why do we instantly recognize that this is wrong? Because we grew up in a country, those of us who are, let's say older millennials on up, we grew up in a country that just had it as its foundation, a kind of equality under the law that we just knew, like kind of in our bones, what it looked like and what it doesn't look like. Now, prior to the 60s, I can't say, but I grew up in a world where hearing the language coming out of people like Gloria Ladson-Billings and Nicole Hannah-Jones and Ta-Nehisi Coates and Ibram X. Kendi and all of these people, as well as the gender people, hearing the words come out of their mouth, it's like, what are you saying? What? And it's not just because, well, boys can't be girls. I mean, that should be obvious, and we all took biology. But it's because what they're saying is illogical and anti-American. It goes against the principles of liberty that we all grew up cherishing, regardless of what your political persuasion was. It was like, no, we don't judge people by the color of their skin, and we don't do group punishment across millions of people based on immutable characteristics. That's something people in weird other cultures and countries do. We don't do that. That's why it looked so weird to us, and that's why it didn't look weird at all to millennials and below, because they were never taught what we were taught about the Constitution and MLK and all those things. But we can stop it. We who do know shouldn't get sucked in. And I see plenty of people my own age who are stuck in okay groomer mode. They're stuck in ban all the things mode. They're so fully distracted by that CRT, that CRT. Look, more CRT. Do you see it? Do you see it? There it is. Do you see it? Yes, I see it. What are you going to do about it? Keep saying, there it is. There it is. And then the response is, no, we need to elect this guy. He's going to ban it. Especially if it's someone who's already in office in any capacity. I'm like, what is he or she done lately to enforce the law on the books? Because I missed it. I missed seeing his lovely face standing there in front of a microphone saying, what is going on in our state's schools and universities is a violation of the Civil Rights Act. And as your governor, state senator, congressperson, legislator, member of General Assembly, whatever, I am going to spearhead a move to enforce the law. My office is asking the Attorney General of the state to file a lawsuit on behalf of the taxpayers of this state because their rights are being violated. How about that? Don't you think that'd be more effective than a ban? In the meantime, instead, it's the lowly citizen. We'll file a civil rights lawsuit. With what money? And what lawyer's going to help me? This is literally the job of the government, is to protect our rights. That's their job. That's their only legitimate job. They're the ones who should sue the district. So, as an example, the person running for governor in my state, instead of talking about, I'm going to ban it, I'm going to get rid of it, which is, of course, what he's saying, should be saying, well, when I'm governor, unlike the current governor who violates your rights on a daily basis and thought he was king during COVID too, so he violated all of those rights as well. I'm going to, first and foremost, I'm going to hop on into office and get rid of my executive emergency powers that allow me to do whatever the hell I want, as long as I call it an emergency. We're going to put an end to that because I might not always be the guy in office. So we're never again going to have a King Cooper. That's first. Just first. So we don't be closing schools and doing, putting you out of business, telling you can't go to work, telling you you can't visit your loved ones in the hospital. We're not going to do that just because we said emergency. Second, I'm going to tell my attorney general of the state that his or her first order of business is to enforce the law as it pertains to education in the state, K-12 all the way up to the universities. We're coming for you, Chapel Hill. We're coming for you, Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools, Wake County schools. And you will not be permitted anymore to discriminate on the basis of sex and political persuasion, religion, whatever it is you're discriminating. You're not going to be allowed. And by the way, we're starting to take complaints for this lawsuit. Please send your bona fide complaints to my office forthwith with your documentation and evidence, and we will add it to our lawsuit materials on your behalf. You're welcome. That's what they should be doing. Not, I'm going to pass a law banning shit. That's a distraction. That allows them to continue to, do whatever. That allows them to raise campaign funds. No, God forbid they actually enforce the law and explain the law to people who might not understand it as well. It's a distraction. So I wanted to come here today and tell my audience, please be mindful of this. And when you run across people who are advocating for bans or electing people who want bans or electing people who want to, put new language in or add things to hate crimes, like make anti-Semitism a mandatory course. Make it a hate crime to say anti-Semitic things. Well, here's Deb telling you, please don't do that. Please don't do that on my behalf. I don't believe there's such a thing as hate speech. There is speech. If it rises to the level of incitement, punish it. If it doesn't, the person's an ugly asshole. But we need to teach our children how to deal with ugly assholes. Not compel them not to say mean words just because we want to be included in the mean word protected club. That's a distraction. That's just like good. We get everybody wanting totalitarianism now. Isn't it awesome? Right, left, in between. They just want their own version of a totalitarian and they want to be included. It's a game. It's a game. And the last thing I'll say is one of the best ways to avoid getting sucked into this trap, this anti-woke distraction trap of, but it's anti-woke to hate X, or it's anti-woke to want to ban. It's anti-woke. So right away, everyone's like, well, I want to be known as anti-woke. I am anti-woke. I'm not woke. Don't equate me with those horrible groomer, pedophile, whatever, predators, racists, etc. Therefore, I'm for the thing. I'm for the anti-woke bill or whatever. That doesn't make you anti-woke any more than it makes them inclusive or tolerant or caring or kind or any other shit that they claim they are. If woke is shorthand for anything, it's collectivism. Like I said, statism, totalitarianism. You don't get to call yourself anti that using the methods of totalitarianism. But trying to get you to do that is a neat gimmick, isn't it? So the last thing I'll say is that when you see this stuff come up, challenge it to other people and to inoculate yourself. I highly recommend James Lindsay's latest little bullet recording about linguistic discipline. It's so important. I cannot think of anything more important for you to do after listening to this than to go listen to that. If you haven't already, if you have already, then yay, you'll understand what I'm saying. But he explains in very clear terms what linguistic discipline is and why it's so important. To give you an example, never use the term cis. Don't use the term gender. It's sex discrimination, sex change operation. And they don't really change their sex, right? They're trying to change their genitals, right? But it's not gender. There's no such thing. If gender is a social construct, then you don't surgically alter yourself to reconstruct yourself socially, if it's socially constructed. So he explains how nonsensical it is to start using their terms, and it's so easy to do. That's part of the distraction. I want to make sure everybody knows what I'm talking about. And next thing you know, you're arguing for equity for Jews on the intersectional chart. You're arguing that, women need to be protected in their spaces for reasons other than the obvious. The obvious is men are men. They're physically bigger, stronger, and pose a threat to women. There's a reason that the sex spaces were separate in the first place, right? It's not because we don't deserve these special places because we're extra special or because they're ours or something. They make sense. It's about safety, common sense, decency, all those things. Protection, equal protection. You cannot be equally protected as a female from strange men if you're put into the same space with them. And you can't have equal protection because they're not, we're not, the equalizer is the separate space. That's the strength equalizer. I don't have to worry about physically defending myself against you because I'm in a separate space. Now we're equal. That's what people keep missing. It makes no sense to say that the guy, the physical male who wants everyone to see himself as a female, deserves equal rights with the woman. That makes no sense. It cancels itself out. And the government, we're at the point now where the Biden administration, through a stroke of a pen with executive order, it wouldn't hold up in the Supreme Court, in my opinion. No way would this hold up if it were really, truly examined. They are saying that especially minor boys and girls, that the boy gets all the special that he can go in the boys' room. He can go in the girls' room if he calls himself a girl. And yet there's no sex discrimination. That is sex discrimination. He's getting a privilege above and beyond what the woman has. And it's not because, the woman can't go in the men's room. She can. But that doesn't make her equally strong. She's now got more access to get her ass kicked or raped. So that doesn't really help anything. The reason was we are not physically equal. And then we have women saying, well, because we admit it, we're not physically equal. So we need to be politically and legally equal. And one of the ways we do that is with separate spaces, period, the end. I hear nobody making this argument Actually, that's not true. Helen Joyce is making this argument. So linguistic discipline is vitally important to this end. They are not trans kids. They are mentally ill children who need mental health care, not medicine, not surgery, and for sure, not the affirmation of the adults around them. We just have to diligently use the proper terms. That's how it's done. Then you won't get sucked into these things. So, yes, it is porn. Yes, it is porn. But don't call it about trans kids, because it's not. It's porn about exploited, mentally ill children that further exploits them in front of their peers. Sounds a whole lot different, doesn't it? Might get more people's attention to be like, whoa, that's dark. Yes, it is. Mhm. Keep calling them trans kids, or keep saying somehow they should be trans kids, but in their private time. And you do sound like you're being exclusive. You do sound like you're being a bigot. Take away the designation that they are trans kids, and what are you bigoted against? You're not bigoted. You're trying to protect those kids. They're mentally ill children being exploited for political purposes, political and financial purposes from the pharmaceutical companies. Has a very different ring to it, doesn't it? So, that's what I wanted to bring to you today. I will be doing some programs next week about AI, so that's what's coming up there. We're going to talk a little bit about how AI is getting into the schools and into the classroom. That'll be sort of probably Monday's Dis and Dispatch, unless I can get somebody I'm trying to get as a guest to come, and we'll put it off. But we need to have a conversation about that next. And I'm afraid that all of this distraction around these other issues is keeping us from paying very close attention to much bigger problems, like what's happening with generative AI in our schools, data mining in our schools, and the health care being pushed into our schools. Much bigger deal than CRT ever was. Bigger deal even than DEI. Much bigger. And part of why it got this big without our even noticing or paying attention is that we were so busy focusing on all of these other issues and getting into these little fights about them. So, thought I'd bring it up. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Thank you for watching. Thank you again for being a member of this community. I greatly appreciate it. You make this work possible, and I will see you next week. Bye.